Like, that is what we have to do, and that is my mission, and that's really kind of like what I am truly about right now, because adding another client for Rehab CEOs, like that's not gonna change my life. But if we can add hundreds of people who wanna make an impact, we can open hundreds of clinics that can actually show people the right way. And side note, a billboard inside of like Times Square, that's not gonna change someone's perception of what physical therapy is. But if we have thousands of clinics around the nation actually advertising, showing people what we can help them with, that's how we do it. And so that's what I'm passionate about now. All right, in today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about how I got where I am and how I learned what I have to be able to help the clinics just like yourself. And so to date, right now, I believe we have right around 250 or so clinics that we're working with. And I've been doing this for about 7 years. So really nothing but physical therapy, marketing, and sales for about the last 7 years. And I have my doctorate of physical therapy, but I actually never practiced. So a lot of people don't know that. So I went to school just to, I guess, accumulate debt and have doctor in front of my name. And so there's a lot of things that kind of led me there. And there's things that I've kind of learned over the years and everything like that. So I'm just going to kind of break down some of that so y'all even kind of just know who the heck you're listening to, why I should listen to this bald guy. And so for me, I was a dental hygienist for 4 years. I actually tried to be a dentist before that. I met my wife actually when I was doing shadowing to become a dentist with one of my childhood friends, and we were shadowing there. We met. We both realized we went to A&M, and so that's kind of how that started. And I tried to get into dental school 2 years in a row, did not get in, and I was like, okay, well, screw that. I'm not going to try that again. And so I actually went back to school so I could actually do dental hygiene. So I ended up getting my bachelor's in dental hygiene. My first degree is at A&M. My second was at Baylor, which was then bought by A&M. So technically, I guess A&M. And so that was the same school that my wife went to actually become a dentist and then later an orthodontist. But so I did that for 4 years, and realistically, I talk about this a lot, is the dental field is about 10 years ahead of the physical therapy field as far as like where their work constraints are, where their reimbursements are going, where they're like really everything, workforce changes, marketing, sales, like they're usually about 10 years ahead. And so they were starting to kind of see a lot of the stuff that we see in a lot of the higher volume, lower insurance based clinics where like they're just straight up producing you. You're in a mill, you're having to do all these type things. Like there's no way you can actually give quality care no matter how much you cared. And so for me, I didn't really align with that. And so between that and then in 4 years, you pretty much hit your cap, which it's similar to like a staff PT. There's really only so much you do unless you get into leadership or something. And so I was just like, well, I want more than this. My back's all banged up. I got all these issues. I didn't know about physical therapy as far as things that you could help me with at the time. But I was just like, what is the other healthcare options? Because I enjoy talking with people and helping people, but to where I'm not having to go back and like be an MD or like something like that. Or like I didn't want to do nursing because everybody I ever met that does nursing is like exhausted and dead and they're overworked and stuff like that. And so played sports my whole life, had really started working out a lot kind of at that time. And so I was just like, physical therapy, that sounds good. Then I was like, well, what's the actual cap we can get there? And staff PT, I was like, okay, well, there's still a cap. But unlike a lot of other healthcare professionals, I can open up my own practice. And so I was like, that's the path. And so I actually was working full time while going back to school because half of my stuff had actually lapsed to where schools for some reason think all of a sudden after 7 years you have to like redo stuff. It's silly the way they do some of their stuff. But was going to school and doing all that because I was still having to kind of support while my wife was in residency. And so I was just going back to school, got into my doctorate at UT Southwestern here in Dallas. And during that time, I was just like, well, if I'm going to open a clinic, I'm probably going to need to learn how to do this whole like running a business and marketing and sales and all that. And at the time, like I thought, hey, based on everybody that's online, they're all telling me that insurance clinics are dead. I probably need to be doing cash based. And so for cash, you've got to know how to market, you got to know how to sell, like way heavier than your insurance based clinics. Little did I know that like I just didn't understand insurance at that time, and you actually can have like hybrid and insurance clinics to crush, but that wasn't what those cash gurus were selling at the time. So that's not what they pushed. And so I had in my head I was going to be opening up a cash-based clinic. That's literally like what I thought pretty much all through PT school. So I was just learning as much as I possibly could. I was just literally going through podcasts, courses, everything like that while I was going back and forth to school. But the month before I started school, I had already kind of been going through stuff, and I had to give a shout out to Alex and Will Boyd, they had like a small group for physical therapy marketing at the time, which I don't think they really do that anymore. They're kind of in some of the finance stuff, but they needed an intern. And so they're like, hey, like we're looking for an intern. I was like, cool, well, let me do that. And so I learned like some of the basics of like how to build funnels and some basics of ads and stuff like that. And I just answered questions, helping people, and someone eventually reached out. My boy Joe Ruzick, so yeah, I still call him Pueblo Joe. So if anybody knows him, that's such a shout out to Joe. He was my very first client. He first reached out. He's like, hey, do you know how to run Facebook ads? And I was like, I mean, I've taken a course on it. I mean, I've never ran them before. He's like, cool, let's try it. And so we did that, and then he referred someone, another one referred someone, he referred someone, and it just kind of like escalated over time to where I'm this crazy person trying to like commute, because when I first started school, it was about an hour commute there. So I was commuting to school, going to school full time while trying to slowly actually grow this marketing business. But like, I didn't really see it as a marketing business at the time. It was more so like, hey, that's kind of cool. I'm getting paid to learn all the stuff that I need to know for my clinics, and we're getting some okay results. Like when I look back at it now, I'm like, those results suck, but like it was good for me. And so it just continued to compound on itself until like my last year of PT school. I was just like, I'm making more than I can as a PT if I would just be a staff PT. This is interesting. And I really like it. And I don't know if I love treatment, actually, now that I'm kind of getting into clinicals and stuff like that. And then we ended up having to relocate for my wife's job. So I was doing a 2-hour commute each way to school for pretty much the whole last year. And I was just binging like 2 times speed, binging every course, binging every podcast, like, and none of it was clinical. It was just like business, sales, marketing, like that's all I did. And I was like, there's probably something to the fact that like I can't get myself to want to study for my stuff, but I can just consume for like 8 hours worth of content a day. And so at that point I was just like, okay, well, let's finish. I got my doctorate, busy growing my business, not studying for my boards, failed my boards twice. And then I kind of had to have this realization of like, hey, you're already helping like dozens of clinics at this point. You don't really care about actually getting your license because you're probably never going to use it. And if anything, in some states, it's actually going to limit you because you've got boards that would limit what you can do because you're licensed. And so I was just like, well, never going to use that. I could always go back and do it. So I actually never got licensed. And then at that time, I already had quite a few people that I was working with. I did that for a couple more years. Back then I was PT Marketing Secrets was the name of my company. And so we were definitely very marketing based. We were website. I did some Google ads. We did Facebook ads, but then some SEO, but not quite as much then. And if I'm being honest, I absolutely hated building websites. So like I built Joe's website back in the day, and now that we have a full website team, I was like, we need to go rebuild Joe's. Like I'm ashamed of that website. And so again, Joe's my OG, so I got to take care of him. But like that was kind of how it started to grow over time. And I eventually just like, I do not want to own a practice right now. I don't want to do anything clinical. Like I just want to do this because this allows me to kind of have the flexibility that I want, and we're getting really good results, and like I love it. And over time though, I was just like, a lot of my guys are getting the same results lead wise, but not everybody was getting the same results as far as like how long they stayed, their ROI, their actual profit, like all those things. But I didn't really know enough about those things. And at that time, I was starting a podcast. And so I was just going to go interview all of the different coaches in the space and everything like that. And so I had already interviewed probably 15 or so of people in the space. One of them is one of the big cash guys in the space. They actually asked me to be their CMO. And so I was like, interesting. So someone clearly sees what we're doing, and they've talked to all of our clients, and they're like, hey, this stuff works. We want to add it with our coaching. And so I was like, that's intriguing. But when I did a true look at everything and I saw who was working, who had the best results, who I enjoyed working with the most, I was like, it's really not just cash guys. Like I like insurance too. And so I was like, I don't really know if I can align with like the whole like F insurance kind of stuff. Like I just don't know if I can align with any of that. And so I'm a big fan of like, what's the destination you want to get to? We can figure out the model. If that happens to be all cash, if that happens to be hybrid, if that's insurance, like let's figure it out. And so like I didn't really align with that because it's kind of incongruent for me of like, hey, we went to school to help as many people as possible, but only if they can afford $225 a visit. So like that didn't really align with me. And I was like, honestly, like I'm probably would be a terrible employee at this point. And so for me, I was just like, hey, if someone's wanting me to do this, it would probably make more sense for me to partner with someone versus being an employee for someone. And so despite the fact that like immediately like multi six figure salary with potential for seven figures with the expansion revenue and all that, like I actually said no. And one of the people I actually was doing a podcast with, well, it took us 2 times to actually not ever film a podcast, but Robbie and I hopped on a podcast. And if any of you know Robbie, he's just one that's going to help you as much as he possibly can and not even really care about anything that happens with him. And so we just jammed out for like 2 hours back to back of like, how do we help each other? And he definitely comes from more of an insurance-based world. He's done the cash and some of the out-of-network and everything like that too. And so like I was very familiar with the cash because we taught sales because I mean, one of my mentors, he's worked with about 5,000 gyms around the nation. So the way they teach their sales process for personal training was essentially how I was teaching the cash guys how to sell their packages, and it was working. But then we kind of learned we could infuse those for insurance or cash and kind of merge those. So we were like, okay, well, Robbie seems pretty different because like, no offense to any older people here, but a lot of the insurance gurus are much older, and they don't even inherently understand the kind of the mix of cash or out of network. They don't understand how some of the digital marketing stuff works. And Robbie was one of those that was kind of unique because like he understood the marketing, he understood the insurance, he understood the sales. Like he was doing some marketing on the side with some of his guys that he was coaching at the same time. And he's I think 38 now, so like not old in the grand scheme of things, and so older than me. But and so for us, I was just like, well, all of my marketing guys need coaching. And he's like, well, all my coaching guys need marketing because we do all the coaching, and then they're like, how do we fill them up? And I was like, well, I fill them up, and then they're like, how do I be profitable and how do I hire? And so I was just like, hey, have you ever considered actually partnering? And so we actually ended up partnering almost 2 years ago to kind of merge these two together. And so that's a lot of how we've been able to kind of figure all this stuff out. I mean, I've literally gone through over $1 million worth of trainings, courses, masterminds, and stuff like that right now at this point. I mean, we're literally about to fly out right now for one that costs a ridiculous amount of money. And so he was doing the same thing though. Because like a lot of people I talk to, they want to grow, they want to do these things, but they don't really invest in themselves. They're not doing it. They're not, and like he was flying out to Florida to learn how to do speaker training. He was doing all these other masterminds to learn how to do other stuff. And so I was just like, okay, he actually cares. He wants to grow. He's already been coaching for 7 years, or at that time, I guess it was 5 years, with 8 other guys, but they were still running their clinics. He had sold his clinics due to some other issues, and he wanted to go all in on coaching. And so it was the perfect fit, and we were able to kind of meld it because if I'm being honest, when I first started, I never actually truly understood what happens on the back end of this is what happens. You get the lead, you do the sale, but I didn't think about all the other operational complexity to things. And so we were able to finally start to merge. These are the things that are important on the marketing side. It's not always, hey, we need more new leads. I actually find in most cases, it's not usually I need more new leads. There's usually things that are happening on the back end that need to be fixed. We're not going into a leaky funnel, but like even just thinking about administrative burden, how we build a longer term time frame, actual plan for marketing. And so that allowed us to really kind of merge the two together to where like we could really make them actually cohesive. So one hand knows what the other is. Cause that's one of the things that I always saw is like, well, I'm telling you to do this one thing, but your coach is telling you to do the other. These aren't actually knowing what the other is telling them, and they actually don't even align with what they're saying. And so we've been growing at this point. I mean, we started when we merged probably about 40 clinics or so that we're working with. And like I said, now we're at about 250. And so a lot of it's just been through trial and error that we've learned all this type of stuff. We pulled what we already knew worked with Robbie. We pulled what we already worked with us and within Robbie's clinics. And we've just continued to nurture this and everything like that. And so that's a lot of my background. I think that the other aspect that I think a lot of people don't know about me, my family, home builders, '08, of course, everything went down. And so I think that that is probably one of the biggest things that people are not aware of for me. Cause like I I've seen what happens when someone goes to zero, and that's why I'm so passionate about helping as many people as we possibly can. Because when we lost everything, then like we moved in with my parents moved in with my granny. There wasn't even really enough room for me, so I had to go live with my best friend from when I was younger, and working through college, doing all that type stuff, like all kinds of stuff. And I didn't even really see how crazy it was because they were trying to be protective of me at the time and stuff like that. And so I've seen what can happen if we potentially get into a pickle, a bad situation, or any of those things. But I've also seen what hard work and things that can actually do there. So I am just so tired of the physical therapy profession being sounding like it's dying. Meanwhile, we're in clinics that are printing like ridiculous amounts of profit while helping people without having to stack them on top of each other. Like we had someone, they're like, well, why aren't you double booking your commercial insurance guys? It's like, because we don't need to. Like, if we don't need to do that type stuff, we truly need to care about our patients. And so I think there's so much of this dogma of like, oh, your cash or your insurance is like, it doesn't matter. I'll tell you, if you're looking for the easiest opportunity of growth, like you need to be hybrid, you need to be insurance if we're being real. But I don't care what model you are. I care the fact that physical therapy has like the worst branding issue ever. Go ask 20 people on the street, like they don't know what the heck we do. Half of your parents don't even know what the heck you do. They assume it's like when someone gets in a wreck or post surgery or something like that, and that's it. So I just think that for us, originally I was like, let me own my own cash clinic. Then I was like, I can actually help impact more people by helping them grow. It doesn't have to be cash. Again, I'd probably rather hybrid and insurance. But then I was realizing there's a lot more potential here. And so for us, we're actually going to be looking to start opening and buying clinics next year, because our free program allows people, if there's any friction of wanting to try to actually grow a business, we don't want it to be there. We don't want there to be a paywall. We want anybody who actually gives a crap about the profession to be able to help. And then our other program is to help coach the ones that are maybe a little bit bigger and actually want to grow. But I see so much opportunity in the physical therapy space, and I see no one leading it the way that I would like it to be led. Showing that you can give a crap about your employees, showing you can give a crap about your patients, paying people the wages that they deserve. That is what we want to do, and start doing that with clinics so we can lead by example. And so originally, let's be honest, like I wasn't like this altruistic, I want to change the entire PT industry. I was just like, I want to have a good work-life balance and make a lot of money. Like that was pretty much how I looked at it. But I just see that there's so much opportunity, and I don't think that there's going to be one group that can change everything. Like we can't depend on the APTA to change everything, especially since half the people aren't even members. We can't depend on one big chain to change everything. And so I think that is kind of our like just new 20-year vision. It's like, let's help people that want to be helped and start their own, help the ones that already have their own, and then lead by example, showing people how it can actually be done. Despite the fact that every Facebook group, every post you ever see is just so dang negative. Like, and I'm not like a big Trump person, but like really like the easiest way to sum it up is like, I just want to make PT great again. Like, that is what we have to do, and that is my mission, and that's really kind of like what I am truly about right now. Because adding another client for Rehab CEOs, like that's not going to change my life. But if we can add hundreds of people who want to make an impact, we can open hundreds of clinics that can actually show people the right way. And side note, a billboard inside of like Times Square, that's not going to change someone's perception of what physical therapy is. But if we have thousands of clinics around the nation actually advertising, showing people what we can help them with, that's how we do it. And so that's what I'm passionate about now. I said I am very much a capitalist at heart. So if you're like, hey, these guys, all they want to do is make money. Yes, I do want to make money. But the only way in a true capitalist actual world you make money is by providing value. And so that is always my goal, is solving problems for owners to where we can then have a good exchange of, hey, you're paying me and I'm getting more out of it. And the same thing with everything we're doing at the clinics. We want to continue to grow everything. I'm always transparent about, I like money, I like finances, I like all that type stuff. But I'm also a big fan of believing money only amplifies the person you are. So if you're a good person, you're only going to be a better person when you make more money because you can help more people. If you're a bad person, we've all seen this example of it within the physical therapy industry and a lot of other industries. Bad businesses, bad people, more money, they just become worse. And that's what I'm trying to prevent in our industry, because I think there's too many bad actors that is making physical therapy look bad. And I think that there's a lot better way. And knowing that I think it's 43 billion a year right now as far as the actual industry as a whole, and it's supposed to be getting to like 90 billion by 2030, there's a lot more opportunity than people think. And so that's my background. That's my little mini rant of what I kind of want to get out of Rehab CEOs and continue to do and improve the profession. There's, of course, 5 billion courses, 5 billion mastermind, all these other things that I've been through a ton at this point. But a lot of it's just been through trial and error and just sheer volume of clinics we're in, seeing what works and what doesn't. And so, like, there's not really any of this hypothetical anymore of like what works, what doesn't, because someone would be like, oh, you never ran a clinic. It's like, we're literally running 250 clinics. Like, anybody who's in our program sees how we manage our guys. Like, it's weekly accountability, it's everything. So like, we are modeling our actual coaching program to be the same scale of how we manage our clinics. And so that's how we want to look at everything. That's how we want to help as many people as possible. But I'm just going to keep it real. Like most of y'all, if you already know me, like, you know, I don't really sugarcoat stuff. I'm going to speak my mind. I want to be the voice for the people who like are afraid to talk up on some of this stuff. Like, insurance is okay, guys. Making money is okay, guys. Like, it's okay. And so I want to be the voice for any of y'all, so that way you can continue to be in the right place, see what's working, see what's not. And I look forward to having y'all listen to the next one.